Hello, welcome to Live Rally Games. My name is Steven. I'm back today to talk about Survivor BC Rockrain Valley Episode 11. But I am not alone today. I'm joined with the one, the only, Stacy Lee. Stacy, how are you doing?
I'm good, Steven. How are you?
It's great catching up with you. I mean, this is a fun fact. I've had the opportunity to play 5 live rally games, and you've been there for over half of them.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
we met in 2017 for Pirate Survival Expedition. We then
Mhm.
played again in Survivor BC in 2019. Then 2021, we worked together in Victory House the Mole. So that means next year, right? It's going to happen again.
Yeah, every other year.
It kind of feels like at every 2 seasons, Tyler Kakuna returns to Survivor BC once again. You and I, every 2 years, we have a live rally game with each other.
Right.
So, Stacey, you're here today because you unfortunately were the most recent eliminated player on Survivor BC. But before we talk about Survivor BC, when we were discussing early on, you have a rich history in live rally games. I don't think you've ever talked about it for a podcast or an interview format. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that is correct.
So I get to be the first, which you have no idea how excited I am to run an interview like this. So I want to talk about, how did you learn about live rally games?
Well, actually, our local bowling alley in the town that I live in, there was like a flyer saying, 2 days live Survivor game. And I saw it and was like, oh, I want to do this. So I contacted the host and he said he didn't get enough. This was in 2013 and he didn't get enough interest. And so he contacted me a year later and said, hey, it's on. We're going to do it. Would you like to play? And I was like, yes, please. So I played that. It was just at our local park. We went home at the end of the night. Final 6.
That's awesome.
And then the next year he did another one that was like a blood versus water. And I could not get anyone to play with me whatsoever. Like none of my friends were like, no. So he actually had Amos and Corey Altery actually came and played. And Corey was my partner for the blood versus water part. And because they played, that's how I learned about Amos's game, Surviving Reelfoot. And that's really where the ball started rolling.
So what was the first game? Who was the host of this first game? What was it called?
It was called Survivor Ohio Erie, and the host was Ben Denker.
Okay.
Yes.
So I take it you were a huge Survivor fan going into this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've been watching since it first aired when it was on Thursday nights, and I bartended on Thursday nights. And that was what was on the television. And if someone complained, I looked at them and said, do you want another drink? Change the channel when it's over. Okay, thanks.
So what was that experience your first time playing like?
I loved it. I mean, I didn't know anybody, which is how I prefer it, because then,
Oh yeah, same.
Work a little harder. The challenges were fun. We got to go home at night, so it wasn't like, totally miserable. If I was hungry at the end of the day, I could swing by and grab something and then, But I loved it. I mean, I just loved the challenges, the figuring out who we're voting for, and the sneaky conversations, and then I was hooked.
When you picture yourself as a player, what kind of Survivor player did you want to be, and what kind of Survivor did you end up kind of playing as that first game?
I honestly didn't really know how I wanted to play going into it. I was very nervous. I'm not going to lie. I was extremely nervous. Like, what am I doing? But, I'm not one to shy away from things that put me outside of my comfort zone. So I was like, all right. And then it was just kind of feeling out the other people. I pretty much let people come to me to talk, and built the alliance that way. So I was a little more reserved, less moves, less of a risk taker. Now, the second time I played a little harder, a little more sneaky, may have done some lying, you know, but you know, I like to mix it up a little.
Okay. Yeah, because that was one thing I was wondering is like, have you kind of figured out what is the best strategy for you to come to games? Every game you're kind of like you're retooling or you're thinking you're like, I want to try this way now for a change.
I always like to challenge myself and try different things
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like if I'm playing the same way constantly and maybe like tweaking that just a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, it's not challenging me.
Mm-hmm.
So some games I'll try and play, you know, straight loyal, straight up front. This is what I'm doing. Like, and other games, I will do sneaky things just to see if I can do it because I'm not the greatest liar.
um, have you ever tried a strategy that's just flopped? You're like, okay, that never again. Like you tried it once, and like, and you're like, okay, let's not.
Well, I did play it was a 1-day game. I have no idea why things were coming out of my mouth the way they were that morning. We had to be there really early at like 6. And someone was like, "Oh, my bucket list is to find an idol." And then my dumbass pipes up and is like, "Oh, I found 3 in games in the past." I may have been first boot. Oops. And even as it was coming out of my mouth, I was like, "What are you doing?" Like, but I couldn't make it stop. It just
So I
kept
think the
going.
answer is you don't want to start a 1-day game at 6 a.m.
Correct. And then you also don't want to like put your gameplay out there first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Um, you've played a variety of formats. Like you've probably played 16 people cast. I think you've played maybe up to 20, 24 people cast.
Mhm.
Have you played in a 3-tribe format?
Yes.
So what do you think for you what's your ideal cast size number? What's your ideal kind of starting configuration for tribes? Like what do you like best the BM?
I'll be honest, like I don't really know what I think my favorite
Mm-hmm.
is. I do tend to like the larger casts.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's more to work with, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, but yeah, as far as like 2-tribe versus 3-tribe, like I've only played one 3-tribe game and I made it to final 5 in that one too, so I don't know. You know.
Yeah, because it's weird because like when I've been on like a 10 to 12 person tribe, you kind of feel a little bit. I felt a little bit more insulated. Like okay, like I don't feel as nervous from the get go because I kind of have an idea where I am. But like when I'm on like a 6 to 8 person tribe, it gets very real fast. Like oh, there is not a lot of options, and I'm easily going to be an option here.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, I like to think I'm never an option in the beginning.
Well, I think if you had to guess what your average placement in those games, on average, I see you go pretty deep, I want to say.
Yeah, there've only been, well, apart from like Mayhem Manor, because that's a totally different
That's
format.
its own
Yeah.
thing.
But games where there's like jury, there's only been 2 where I didn't make it to jury phase, and that was the one where I was first boot, and then Pirate Booty Camp season 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that one I was even like, I'm ready to go. It was right after my mom had passed, and I did what I came to do and didn't want to get all heady because I figured I would be emotional, and yeah.
Well, so if we're talking about game formats, you played a mole game. I know you played Big Brother games. You played Survivor games. I don't even know how you classify Mayhem Manor. I think that's its own classification.
Yes.
Are there any other kind of games you played?
I played Camp.
Okay.
Which was kind of like reverse Survivor.
Mm-hmm.
You start out with individual challenges, and then you end up like the winner of those ends up on like a camp.
Mm-hmm.
And then after it's dwindled down and you've got the 2 camps, then it was camp against camp, and then we voted people out, like the losing camp voted people out. So it was like, yeah, it was like reverse. It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was March of 2020 out in California.
Is there any like type of game you still want to play that's out there? Like, do you have like oh, I really need to play X game, or I really want to see this exist?
There's a ton of games that I would love to still play.
Okay. So recently you changed roles a bit
Mhm.
and you assisted on production with Who Wants to Be a Mole Alive game. And I think this is the first time you formally have been on production.
Yes.
How was that experience kind of being on the other side of things?
It was stressful, but it was fun. I mean, the team that Jamie compiled was
Hmm.
great. I felt like we all worked really well together.
Hmm.
Um, it was difficult when, like, I'm in a room kind of
Hmm.
monitoring a portion of a
Hmm.
challenge and people are talking about how they should do it. It was really hard for me not to pipe up and be like, "Oh, maybe you should," you know? So I caught myself a couple of times having to rein it in,
Hmm.
um, and not try to assist because I had my own ideas of what they should be doing and was like, you know, but it went really smoothly.
Hmm.
And I had actually thought that we would have a lot of hiccups, a lot of like time
Hmm.
issues, and we didn't really get super far behind.
Hmm.
And the only reason that we did get behind was because some of the assignments lasted longer than we had anticipated. It wasn't
Hmm.
because, we were hemming and hawing around. Like, it was go, 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 go. So,
Because I think what I've learned about LRGs is everything takes longer to do than you think, right? Like everything's a little slower, it takes a little bit more time, and so I know in our Victory House Mole season, we ran early in the morning one day because it was just like we had to get stuff done, but things just take longer than you expect, and and I think when I played Real Fit, we joked that there's Real Fit time. Like you just
right,
accept that this is the way things are, and the game will run, and the game will be fine.
right.
Um, Now, does this make you want to be on production in more games, or you're just like you kind of miss being a player more a production member?
I prefer being a player,
Hmm.
but I would do
Hmm.
production again
Yeah.
as well.
What do you think was the most important piece of advice you felt you could attribute or give to your team to kind of say, hey, as a player, this is what we need to make sure goes right or happens?
Just making sure, like, assignments didn't have, like, issues within them.
Yeah.
But we tested everything,
Hmm.
I mean, we got together quite a lot before the game. So,
Yeah. No, honestly, I'm excited to hear and hopefully talk to the winner and the mole and other players because I think it'll be really fascinating to hear their perspectives in the game and their gameplay. So I'm excited for that in the near future. But I think we should talk a little about Survivor BC now. As much fun as I'm having
okay.
talking about everything else. Survivor BC 2019. You mentioned you've always kind of like come in the game with a kind of maybe a different strategy or different tact or different angle. What was that coming into BC for you?
Coming into BC, I just really wanted to see who I clicked with
Mm-hmm.
and kind of stick with that person.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like, that was Lindsey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I felt really comfortable with her, and so that's who I really wanted to work with throughout the game, which is why you saw me, like, lose my marbles in the beginning of this last episode.
That's interesting. 'Cause I don't think I ever made the. I don't. I think I knew you two were working with each other, but I never realized that you two had clicked so well from the start.
I felt like we did. I don't know if she felt that way, but that's how I felt.
Yeah.
So that's who I wanted to, like, continue to roll with.
Well, talk to me about your original tribe some more, right? So it's you, it's Lindsey, it's Lexi, it's Kristen, and then you have David, Aleem, Noah, and Chris.
Yes.
So,
Um, well, our original tribe had some interesting dynamics.
mhm.
Noah.
I mean, have you ever seen something like that happen in the game before?
No. And, like, he came in like he was running the show, and this is how it's happening. This is who's going. Sorry, it's you. And we're all like, I don't I don't know, buddy. I don't think that's what's gonna
Were
happen.
you on his original? I think you weren't you on his original hit list?
Yes, I think I was first.
It was you, it was Chris, and gosh, it was like one other.
I
And
think it was Kristen.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
sad you weren't there when he had that conversation with Chris and Lindsey as he's just laying it out in front of Chris, like, yeah, I think you're like my third boot of this tribe, and Chris is like, really?
Yeah. No, I'm glad I wasn't there when he laid it out, because then I may have been first boot because my mouth may have started running.
So you have the Noah effect, and so Noah ends up being a very straightforward first boot on your tribe. But talk to me about some of your like initial impressions, relationships with other players.
Well, I really liked David.
Mm-hmm.
Kristen grated on my nerves a lot. She's actually who I had wanted to go first. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
Kristen, you know I love you. Um,
Because you have your relationship with her evolves with the course of the game.
yes, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We laugh about it now. So, and I'm surprised they didn't show more confessionals where like I talk about, like, later in the game there was a point where Kristen really wanted to make a certain move. David wanted to change it, and I was like, no, she doesn't feel like she's being heard. We have to do what she wants us to do, and like that's when I was really like, we have to protect Kristen and make her part of us, and so she doesn't feel like she's an outlier. She's a part of the group. Let her have her voice.
Mm-hmm.
Which that turns out if we would have done what David had asked, he would have stuck around. Oops. But, you know,
You're talking like the final 7.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh well.
Lessons.
Yeah. Well, and then, I mean, even if some of us would have flipped and done what David wanted, then Kristen would have felt alienated
Yeah.
because that's not what she had wanted
Mm-hmm.
to have happen,
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't, I mean,
you were in a hard situation at that point.
yeah. Yeah. So, okay.
What about Lexi and Aleem?
Well, Liam and I didn't really get along from the get-go.
Especially when like you walk out of the first tribal council and I mean, you talked about it, but like you catch a vote. I think you vote for him after that first tribal, right? Yeah.
I did. Well, I felt like if something hinky happened, somebody else needed to have a vote on them just to be on the safe side, because Noah was running around like, who knows, maybe he found the idol. I needed to make sure there was another vote out there if he was writing my name, if Noah was putting my name down. So I put Aleem because Noah was also running around saying Aleem was his ride or die number 1. And so it's like guilty by association. And then after that, like, we couldn't really recover. Like, he was irritated, and so it just continued.
He repays the favor the next vote, right? And we'll get to that. But I think one of their players, you mentioned like you really click with Lindsey. But what about Chris? Because Chris and Lindsey were rather close in the early days at Ula Ula.
Yeah. Well, again, where I like to play with people that I don't know, I knew Chris. So I was trying to like work with people that I didn't know. And unfortunately for, Chris, that's why I kind of didn't stick up a whole lot for him. Sorry, Chris. But if I didn't play that way, I totally would have wanted to work with Chris. But that's not how I play. So yeah, he just.
So I'm curious about Kristen, because did you watch because Kristen had played in Real Fit Thick as Thieves about a month and a half beforehand. Had you seen her play, or did you have any impressions about her game that were informing you for Survivor BC?
I watched some of that season. I feel like the streaming was difficult, like the live feeds were funky or something.
There's a bit of a potato quality-esque to the live feeds.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, you're out in the woods, service isn't always
it's
the
hard.
greatest. So, I mean, I get that. So I think I watched as many as like I kind of could. And then also, I'm at work. So I got to come home and try and catch up when I get home. And it's a lot. So I didn't really know like a ton about her gameplay.
Okay.
So
I think when David gets the extra vote from the challenge and reveals the tribe, did you have any thoughts about that?
no, I was glad. I mean, I was okay with him getting it.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point I felt like we were working together.
Mm-hmm.
Although watching back, I didn't realize I really wasn't in his core group, but
Yeah, because
I
that's
thought
what.
I was.
Yeah, because I was one thing I was curious. Like, did you feel like you were on the edge of the Ululans? Because it felt like had there gone in their tribal council, maybe like you might have been on the edge of.
Yeah. I never felt that way.
Okay.
Ever. Like, I felt like I talked a lot with David. I talked a lot with Lindsey.
Mm-hmm.
I did talk a lot with Lexi.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt Lexi and David were too close,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I sent,
It informed the merge vote.
Yeah.
Had your tribe gone to their tribal council, like who would you want to push for? Aline?
Probably between Aleem, Lexi, and Kristen at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so you get through the pre-swap, right? Chris goes home, Noah goes home. At the swap, it ends up being an even swap. I don't feel like I want to talk too much about our swap tribe, but I think one curious thing for me is that you and Lori, I felt really connected with each other. Do you feel was that true?
Yeah, I feel like we did.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of things in common. She was from where like my family lives, like knew exactly what road she lived off of because my mom's neighborhood was off of that same road. So like we talked about a lot of that kind of stuff. And yeah, I felt like, we had a good connection.
Ultimately, coming out of the swap, Keegan is the only minority member to walk with you all to the merge, and that ends up being I think an important relationship come merge. But I guess I always was kind of shocked to see Lori get voted out, especially considering how close I saw the two of you being. Was there a way, or do you think it would have been better for your game had Lori been to the merge with you?
I'm not sure because Lori wasn't willing to, flip when we had swapped. And so we honed in on Lori because it seemed like she would be the less likely that you guys would think that's who we were going for. So I don't know how loyal she would have been to everybody else going back in after merge. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how she would have played that.
I mean, it was the correct decision. You voted a player with an idol that no one knew about, so that was pretty fantastic. But I just wonder, like, what if that first vote had been set up like, oh, it's between Keegan and Lori because Lori messed up the challenge, or it's between Steven and Lori, and that way, like, me or Keegan ends up being the safe vote that no one expects. Then you have the pick of who do you want to take out next, Lori or Keegan. And maybe maybe that would have been dangerous because then they play the idol correctly at the next tribal council, and you, David, or Lindsey, or probably been David, would have gone home from that. I don't know.
Yep. Yeah. I think we did the right thing, considering that she had that idol.
Yeah, no, you can't argue with the results. So you make it through the swap, and I'm curious, like, how was your relationship with David and Lindsey kind of as a threesome at that point?
I feel like it was stronger going into the swap. Yeah, I feel like it was much stronger going into the swap because the three of us had to work together without anybody else. So
I feel like with the Ula, at least coming into the merge, there was an Ula strong mentality that was, I feel like, especially with the influence of David, for instance, I was really looking to get those 6 Ula to the final 6. Was that something you were fine writing out?
No.
Really?
No.
So talk me through walking to merge what you wanted.
Okay, well, that first vote, I mean, first of all, we're doing it like in the middle of the night. Like I don't know why it looks like it's daylight, but it was like late at night. flashlights to get around, and like it was utter chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, Lexi's like, this person first, then this person, then this person, then this person on the other tribe. And I'm like, hello, Noah. So I was furious and was like, absolutely not. I'm voting for Lexi. And that's what I told everybody on the other tribe. And I had I don't even remember why I didn't, but that is who I wanted to go that round 100% after that. Like, I was so irritated. I was like, I have no desire to work with this person. Bye.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess I want to talk a little bit like, so Stacey, are you there?
Yeah.
It was freezing up a little.
Yeah, I saw it did a little loopy-doo on my end.
Talk me through your kind of relationship in the merge with Keegan, with Rachel, with Taylor, with Tony. Like, given your past background with Rufa, like, what did you know about Taylor and Tony too?
Well, I knew of Taylor from watching her play, and I feel like Tony and I played another game together before this. Maybe it was after. I played with Tony before. I just don't remember where. That's terrible. And so, like, I kind of knew, like, Taylor had kind of like a villain type, I don't know, reputation from what I had heard and kind of knew of her. And I don't know where she got that, but that's the reputation that I had heard from. So, I mean, I felt like she would be easier to, like, kind of work with, but, like, I screwed that up because they voted Lexi, like I said I was going to do, and then I didn't do it. So then I kind of, like, ruined that relationship a little bit. And then later on, talking about voting for Rachel, and, you know, she and Keegan are like, yes, it's time, let's do it. And then we all vote Tony, and I used my stupid double vote for Tony when they did vote Rachel, and we could have had her out that round. So, yeah, I don't know. It was like my brain didn't function in this game. And that's what, like, I feel like this game, for some reason, was extremely mentally exhausting for me. And I don't exactly know why this particular game was like that. But
because I know you've played longer games too, and Survivor BC in the I feel the games I played has had one of the we had sleeping bags.
Right.
We had sleeping bags. I mean, there was food. Like I felt like the weather was gorgeous. Like I've never played a game with the weather so nice where I'm like, it didn't rain, it wasn't 100 degrees. I was like, man, this is heaven.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you think it was just like, I guess, how would you describe kind of the ethos of the merge tribe?
I don't know. Like, I feel like it in the beginning, it felt like it could be a little more malleable, but then towards the end, not so much. I did not talk to Rachel probably more than twice in the whole game.
Oh, wow.
But mostly because she wanted all the information and didn't ever want to give you anything. So, I mean, I think at one point I was like, we were walking towards each other and we both went, no point. Because I was like, you're not going to give me any info and I'm not giving you any more. You know, because, I mean, that was frustrating, like trying to even attempt to work with her and her not providing any input at all about anything. It was just listening and not giving. And I couldn't. So there was absolutely no possibility of working with Rachel, unfortunately. But, you know.
So thinking back at the merge vote, right? At this point, so it sounds like you're uncomfortable with the Ulu majority, specifically Lexi and Aleem, right? You probably heard, did you hear stories about them on their swap tribe? Or is it just how Lexi was behaving at the merge? You're like, I'm done? Like,
It was specifically how she was behaving, and then later we heard about how the two of them were like a tight pair,
Mm-hmm.
constantly going off just the two and forgetting Kristen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was after she was out that I heard
Mm-hmm.
about that. But
And for you, like it sounds like one of your biggest regrets is not actually just fully flipping at that merge vote.
yeah, it's not following through with the things that I said I
Mm-hmm.
was going to do, that I had full intentions of
Mm-hmm.
doing. I mean, at one point in that crazy nighttime scramble, I am literally screaming at people, I'm voting Lexi, I don't care. Like, just losing my, I mean, I literally lost my marbles so many times in this game. Like, it was like I was having an out of body experience, because like I would be doing things, and in my head I'm like, settle down, calm down, what are you doing? And I couldn't. It was like I don't know. I think maybe the air is thinner up there and
Yeah, I
not
was
enough
like, is this the
oxygen
Canada
was getting to
effect?
my brain. But yeah, I was going crazy in BC.
I mean, maybe if I mentioned this, and do you recall why you just made that last minute switch and voted for Rachel?
I don't know. I don't remember why. I think that's because that's what everybody else wanted to do, and I was like, okay. But I don't know. I don't know. Because I think Lindsey had the same thing. Like, after we walked away, the two of us were like, one of us should have at least voted Lexi.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So at this point, we get the final 9, right? And so it's 5 original Ula Ula for Batohan. And I'm curious, like, why, like, I feel like you were a major driver in the Aleem vote being what happened. And so I'm curious why Aleem then?
I don't quite remember. Not gonna lie. I think maybe I felt like Aleem would still gun for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt better with the other, like the Batahan
Mm-hmm.
people and the other Ula Ula than I did with Aleem. That
Mm-hmm.
would be maybe my guess.
Because I get the feeling when I watched the episode between you, Kristen, and Lindsey, it's a lot of like, we messed up the last vote. We want to prove our trust to you and kind of forge a relationship going forward. And therefore, let's all vote Aleem. Plus, for you, you and him have maybe some unresolved beef.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right. You know.
What? So David, of all the players in the original tribe, is the most probably like looking to keep Ula Ula united and strong at this point. And he, I think, is very vocally unhappy and unwilling to vote Aleem this round.
Mm-hmm.
What was working them like at this point? Because, like I said, you said you were very close with him and Lindsey, at least through that swap portion.
I mean, at that point, like, it was kind of like, well, I think we're gonna do what we want to do because you've kind of been trying to run the show.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna do what we want to do on this one.
Okay.
You could come with us or not.
Yeah, I mean, David at this point is kind of starting to manufacture a lot of things he might have. He's kind of toning with his bag of tricks. He has an idol that Keegan thinks he has. He still has an extra vote. I mean, was he being very transparent with you what he did or didn't have?
Oh yeah, we knew he didn't have anything. Which is why I gave him the weird horn thing that I took from tribal council.
I think my favorite part is when it's finally played and Jara's like, I don't know what this even is. You're like, it was part of your set.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was a comical moment, because I think that was fairly early, maybe pre-swap, because I know
it was like your second time voting, you pocket it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it's huge. It's like, it's huge. So I stuck it up my shirt and I walked back all hunched over. And then I'm like sitting all funny and I'm like, oh, while you're reading votes, can I go to the bathroom real quick? And then I they're like, yeah, okay, we'll have production, help you go to the bathroom. And I'm like, okay. So I grab my bag and then I'm like, oh, acting like I have to pee. And I'm like, I don't know why I grabbed my bag, but I have to go so bad I can't turn around and bring it back. So we go off on the path and I'm like, I don't really have to pee. I just need to get this thing out of my shirt. I shove it in my bag. And I'm like, so now we have to stand here. So they think I went to the bathroom. But like when I was voting, I said, hey, Jared, what's this? And he goes, I don't know. So I said, can I take it? And he said, sure. So I was like, oh, I mean, wouldn't you think that means it may be something? Yeah.
And you also get an extra vote in your merge buff too.
Yes.
Had you had extra votes in prior games?
No, I've never had an extra vote before.
Okay. So I always feel like extra votes are one of the hardest advantages to use, right? Because it's like, even more than idols, like idols usually play like, well, I'm safe and like, yeah, maybe I wasted it, but at least I played it. Extra votes are just like so finicky. Like David using it as extra vote at the final at that final 12 tribal council, I think is the most impactful I've ever seen extra vote outside of like was Island of Idols. They had a swap tribal council. Someone played the extra vote and I was like, well, there goes the tension.
Yeah, and that's the one where we voted Tony and should have voted for Rachel. And if I would have used my extra vote and put it on Rachel, it would have sent her home. If I would have done both my votes for her that round, it would have sent her home. So that's kind of one of my woulda, shoulda, couldas,
Oh, let's talk about that round. So Liam gets voted out. It's now 4 Ula Ula, 4 Batahan. And this is where Batahan kind of just implodes. I mean, what was your thought when watching the episode back?
Well, yeah, because like they were mad at each other for. Are you talking about where?
It's the final 8. Aleem just went home. They realized it's a 4-4, and they just realized they're not going to go to rocks for each other. And this is where Taylor and Keegan agree to target Rachel. Rachel is going to target Keegan, and Tony's off. Thinking that the Batahan tribe is still sticking together.
Right, and they're voting for me.
Yes.
Because he did vote for me, like that next. But yeah, and that like I said, like that's where they were willing to vote for Rachel, and I should have voted that way, and that's originally what we were gonna do. And then the last minute, they're like, what if she has another idol? So we got changed to Tony at the last minute. Yeah.
Because I feel like, at least from the Ulu perspective, it's hard to believe that these 4 would not continue to be working with each other.
Right. But Taylor was so upset with us for not writing Lexi's name down. So upset. I mean, we sat and like cried and talked about it. At that point, and then so I should have believed her, but it was hard to. Because they had been working together for so long. So it was difficult to believe that they would actually flip on Rachel.
So like if you have a choice between voting out Keegan and voting out Rachel, there's no question for you would have voted out Rachel.
Yes, because that's who Keegan and Taylor were both on board for.
But and also you have a working relationship with Keegan, and it sounds like you and Rachel just like it's a no-go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just interesting. It feels like it almost kind of back to the final 12 for us. We're like, well, one can have an idol, so we're going to kind of say, and then we're going to kind of take the middle option. Like that's kind of what happens with Tony. Tony is the safe option, and like walking out. So like, what was your thoughts when you were watching those votes get read, and you're saying that the Keegan and Rachel are both catching each other's votes?
Yeah, kicking myself big time.
Was it immediately buyer's regret?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I was like, I should have just, stuck with what we said we were doing originally because I had the 2 votes. So, I mean, yeah.
Now, did you play the votes because you think you thought it was going to be a 4-4 tie potentially, and like you
Yeah.
needed to make it 5-4?
Yep. That's exactly why.
And then you're watching it be a what 5-2, 1-1. You're just like, oh no, oh no.
Yep. That's when I was like, oh, that was dumb. Whoops.
Now, in any other world, right? You walking into the final 7 with a 4-3 majority, you're just like, well, I guess I can stick with the Ula and just like because I'm in the majority now. It doesn't look bad on paper.
Right.
Yeah.
But we didn't do that.
So you see the votes. You immediately are like, oh shoot. I know we get the confessional from David that episode. It's like, yeah, they're turning each other. They're falling to pieces. We can pick up whoever we want. What is that was something you thought was going to happen? Like they're just like going to stay against each other?
I have no idea. Like, I don't even remember what I was thinking would happen after that. I just knew I was in trouble because I had said I was going to vote for Rachel, and I knew I had damage control that I needed to do because, like, Taylor was livid with me, like livid with, well, really with me and Kristen and I think Lindsey, like,
Yeah.
and it was a big aftermath that, you know,
I don't think we even saw the full brunt of it.
no.
Yeah,
No.
and maybe that's for the best because I think I still love the scene like Keegan and Rachel walk out of tribal and Rachel just looks at him. He's like, and Keegan's like, my bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like it's just think like had you stuck with Keegan and Taylor, I think you would just have a world of options at that point because they would have felt comfortable with you. You would have worked and you're like, okay, we can maybe vote out David next, then take out Tony. Like you could have like, I think you would retain kind of control over how the merge would have gone.
Yeah, probably, but oops.
Now this final 7 immunity challenge. Is that the one where you keep your hand up? Is that your final 6? That might be your final 6 immunity challenge. You had to go.
That was 6.
Okay, so final 7. This is when you're kind of like, okay, we have the 4. Who do we want to vote on? And you all end up deciding to vote on Rachel. Talk me through the kind of strategy of that.
Rachel was the biggest threat for any of the immunity challenges, so Rachel was who we wanted to get out. You know, that's pretty much the long and short of it. I'm doing awful at this interview.
It's been 3 years. Don't worry about it. I mean, and at that point, you really can't do much about idols, right?
Right.
I mean, even with an extra vote, man, like 3-3-2. I don't know. I don't think there's a great way.
Yeah.
And so when Rachel plays the idol at tribal council, like, what could you have done at that point?
Well, and we thought maybe the horn was an idol. So, you know.
Yeah. Because David that round was really fighting to not have the votes be on Rachel.
Right. And that was the round that he was trying to switch it. And Kristen blatantly said, I want to keep it at Rachel, and I don't feel like my voice is being heard. So that was the round when I'm telling David, no, we have to keep it on Rachel because otherwise Kristen doesn't feel like she's part of decision making. She feels like she's just being told what to do, and her voice isn't being heard, and she's saying this is what she wants to do. So yeah, that's why we stuck with Rachel.
So Rachel plays the idol. David goes home. It's now 3-3. This is where you get to do the challenge where it's dusk, right? You're doing the challenge where everyone's kind of in their sleeping bags. You have to keep your hand up and keep it up for an hour. And I think you just say, this isn't for me. You just start idol searching, right? No,
I literally thought I was right on the nose.
Oh, okay.
I apparently count really fast.
So you reach 60, you stand up, and Jara says, sorry, no go.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, someone will be coming shortly after. And I don't think we were allowed to search for the idol. I think I had to just sit there.
Okay.
I don't quite remember, but I didn't search for the idol. And I'm thinking that I wasn't allowed to when I got back.
Okay. So you're just kind of waiting for the challenge to end, and then Rachel almost kind of maybe by fluke wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which has got to be my favorite win when she's just like, I'm over it. I don't know what to say because she seems to think that you were idol searching because you weren't like maybe right there. Like I don't
Right.
know. So
Yeah,
she's
because
like,
I had to go back. I went back to camp.
oh, okay. And it's just you were just waiting at camp.
Yeah. Forever. Because apparently I was done in like 25 minutes.
Wow. So you're like double speed counting.
I know. And I thought I had it like perfect.
Mm-hmm.
No. Yeah, it was bad.
So Rachel wins immunity.
Mhm.
And this becomes kind of like that's kind of worst case almost, right? Because you're like, okay, because at this point you've got to be like, I think the bridge is broken. It's really just us versus them at this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, we didn't go to tribal until the next morning
Mm-hmm.
after that. So we were up all night trying to find an idol.
Mm-hmm.
The old Batahan took both of the lanterns because we had, you know, 2 lanterns, originally
Mm-hmm.
one Ula Ula and one Batahan, and they took both of them. So we're scrounging up coins to try and be able to buy one of the flashlights that we had brought so that we can even go look because it is pitch dark out there.
Yeah.
Kristen looked a little bit and then her legs started bothering her. So like Lindsey and I looked forever until we were finally just like, we're over it. This is go to bed.
Yeah, because it's hard to know like when you all turned in versus when like Keegan and Keegan and not Stacey, Keegan and Taylor found the idol, but I think it was really late in the night. Like,
Oh yeah, we were asleep before they came back.
yeah.
Asleep. Don't even remember them coming back.
Because I think one thing people don't appreciate when watching Survivor, even like reality games, how bone tired you are in the evenings.
Yeah.
You're just like I. At this point, you're like you're emotionally drained, you're physically drained, you're hungry, and at least you have the sleeping bag to sleep on.
Right. It'd be a little warm.
Yeah. So the next day, first of all, this is I think the episode where I don't know if it's the final 5 or final 6 where we start hearing you call Rachel Lori. Did you see the episodes? I think 2 different times you turn the Rachel and call her Lori. One was that tribal council, and one was just like an aside conversation.
I don't remember doing that, and I didn't pay attention to doing that in the episode either.
Yeah, no, there's a moment where like you just like the name slips and you just turn the Rachel and call her Lori. And Rachel's like, what?
Oh, maybe I need to go back and rewatch because I don't remember that.
Well, just maybe laugh because I'm like, man, I'm glad I'm not the only person who struggles with names in these games. I spent my entire real food experience forgetting Jaira's name, and it was mortifying. So the scramble the next day, this is where like it's kind of like when does gameplay begin or stop, and when is it kind of more personal because you start asking other tribes like, if you're gonna vote someone out, vote me, not Lindsey.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I went to each of them individually and cried to them and said, you know, I've played a bunch of these games. Like I let it all out at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was like, this is how many I've played at this point. I have had the experience that I need to have. I said, Lindsey has never played before. I would like for her to stay longer.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could, you know, vote me out so that she can have a longer experience, you know, I would appreciate that. Like, and I went to each of them individually and asked this of them. So, yeah.
Do you remember how they responded?
They said that they would consider it. Look, I'm going to get emotional again. Which is why like when she got like voted out, I'm so hysterical at tribal. And I guess apparently like Lindsey thought I was the other person who voted for her.
Really?
And that's why I was crying because I backstabbed her.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what she told me when I headed to Ponderosa.
She was like, "Why'd you vote me out?"
Yeah, like she said, I don't remember how it came up. Like, I think I was so upset when you left because I had asked them to keep you, and then she was like, I thought you were the one who voted for me, and that's why you were crying. You know.
Oh
And I was like,
no.
oh no.
So that kind of gets us to this most recent episode. We don't see a lot of you this episode, but we start off with "You are furious."
Oh yeah, I was very upset. I actually didn't go to camp. I went straight through it. Found a spot way out in the woods and curled up into a ball and cried until they called 5 minutes till the next challenge. And that's when I got up and I went back to camp.
Because I think even weirdly the way the challenge was so, I think you're cut out of all, like you're like on the far edge of the log, so we don't even get to see you in the challenge, I want to say.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because it was the how well do you know?
Yeah.
It was only when they would cut to a different angle you would see me like at the end. But yeah.
So you're almost like we don't because we hear a lot about you, right? Because like we see you briefly talking with Kristen. Kristen kind of apologizes you for voting for Lindsey, and then we don't get to see you any other time in the kind of the aftermath.
It was foreshadowing.
Now at the challenge, I think you do fairly well, right? Because I think you're in the running at the very end.
Yeah.
But I don't think you make it to the tiebreaker, right?
No, I didn't make it to the tiebreaker.
And so, good or bad, Kristen wins immunity, which is kind of worst case scenario for you.
Well, I mean, honestly, at that point, I was done.
Yeah.
I was done. I was completely fine with leaving at that point. I mean, I knew it was going to be me. I don't even think I campaigned to keep me. I think it was just,
Now, is that something you look back like, wow, I wish I campaigned? You're just like, no, I just need to get out of there. I was done with these people. I was done with this game.
Yeah, I think emotionally at that point, I mean, like I said, I went into the woods, curled into a ball on the dirt, and just bawled for probably at least like 30, 40 minutes, however long until they called us for the challenge. And that's like, they said 5 minutes. And that's when I was like, I guess I should come up. And that's when you see me and Kristen talking. And then we went to the challenge. And, you know, I was just drained. So I think I was like, yeah, I was good.
I mean, when I look at this merge tribe, there were some very how do I put this? There are a set of players in the merge who are emotional, and I'm not saying that as a bad thing, but I feel like you, Taylor, Kristen kind of had unique effect on each other that almost like magnified it and that made the game. I think you were talking about like, why is the game so challenging draining? I think there was this effect of the three of you on each other. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Kristen and I cried together over things
because you had this
Taylor
great conversation with Kristen where you both acknowledged like we're emotional players, and that's not a bad thing. But this is just how we are. And you had this really cool moment together where you kind of talk about that as who you are as people.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you know, like, well, like I'm tearing up talking about it now. This is like, you know.
Because I remember when we played Pirate Survival and we were kind of in the minority and like getting picked off, and that was, it felt awful. And like I was who knew? There's a whole other problem with me in that game, but like I it was just really emotional, kind of like you lose all power control and you're like, well, this is it. And everything we kind of played for is kind of come to nothing.
Yeah. Well, if you remember that game, there was the one day that all I did was cry.
Yeah. Because I think it was like we started at the final 10 and it was just like all our allies just getting picked off or final 9, all our allies getting picked off. And it was not fun.
Yeah.
So watching back this episode, one thing I thought was interesting was Rachel is a little paranoid, right? Because if she is at the forefront to win potentially, right? She's been a major target. This would be a time for her alliance to flip on her.
Yeah.
or at least would be a time. And she is very concerned about that. And Keegan, and I think from Keegan and Taylor, they're done with you and Kristen.
Oh yeah.
Right. And they have no desire to work with the two of you.
Right.
But I'm curious, like, it sounds like at this point you didn't have a working relationship with Rachel. Had she come to you and tried to do something, would you have been receptive to that?
Probably not, because like I said, at that point I was done. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel like I had a whole lot more in me
Mm-hmm.
to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And especially after specifically asking to go the last round.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was upset that I was still there at that point as well, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Because I guess it was just interesting. I was wondering, like, should Rachel have approached you and Kristen and say, I don't trust Keegan and Taylor to take me past the final four, and I want to flip on them, and then she flips back and forces Rocks at final four. I don't know, but I was wondering how much that should have that been something she was thinking about. But it sounds like at that point you're just like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if she would have approached Kristen and Kristen approached me about it. But I mean, I knew Kristen was okay at that point. Like, she wasn't going anywhere. So I don't know.
Yeah. I thought the conversation with Taylor and Kristen was fascinating. We get a very long extended cut between the two of them. And at this point, again, things are kind of broken between them, right? So, but Kristen is saying, like, hey, I know you think I'm a jury threat because I'm going to be one of the last Ula standing. But it's like but like Rachel's also an issue, and I guess it comes down to who is a bigger problem, me or Rachel, and like so she's kind of trying to work through that with Taylor. I thought it was really fascinating. You kind of hear Taylor lay out her game almost at that point, kind of saying, Taylor's like, I have done a lot, and I've been a big driver of the strategy, and I think there's a lot of my game people haven't recognized at this point that I can lay out, and she's kind of almost laying out her case of because Kristen even accuses her, you're taking Rachel to the end, aren't you? And Taylor's almost laying out a case for if she was against Rachel, what she would say.
Right.
So if that is, we don't know. If that is what Taylor plans on doing, it was really fascinating to just kind of hear Taylor almost lay out her end game as Kristen's kind of like trying to figure out, does she have a foothold there?
Right.
If we roll back to like final 10, 9, 8 or something like that, like who would you want to sit next to at the ends? Who was like your dream final 2, final 3 looking at this drive?
I would have wanted to sit next to Lindsey. In a final 2 and a final 3, I would probably say Lindsey and David.
Really? So you have
I don't like goats going. I like strong people who should be at the end. That's how I like.
So you would probably, let's say if the original Ulu at that point, you, Kristen, David, and Lindsey make the final 4, you take out Kristen and try to beat David at the final 3 immunity challenge. Okay. And do you think that would have been, that probably sounds like it would have been a close final travel if it was between you and Lindsey?
I don't know, because I don't know, like, I mean, I don't know if people would have seen like differences or sameness, or I think Lindsey would probably have won it. Okay, is what I think. So, but like I said, I respect the players that take more difficult players to beat at the end.
So at the end of this episode, you end up receiving an extra vote of your own. So it ends up being a 4-1-1. Let me double check, because you and Kristen, our votes are interesting. I can't remember, because you end up voting for Rachel, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so you vote for Rachel. You receive 4 votes, and then Kristen votes for Taylor, which I thought was really fascinating.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. So, you're walking out of the game. Now you're a jury member, and there's going to be at least 2 more people joining you. Who are you rooting for at this point? Who would you want to see at the end?
Well, I'm rooting for my girl Kristen at this point. You know,
Well,
we've had the story arc.
Well, one of the things that Taylor tells Kristen is like, I don't want to sit next to you because if you're at the end, the entire jury, at least the majority, was going to be Ula Ula, and they're going to vote for you. Do you think that would have been the case, that people would have been so heavily voting along tribal lines in this season?
I don't really know. And I mean, I never like to say this is who I'm going to vote for until tribal council, like the final tribal. I hear what they say, and that's when I really make. I mean, I can go in saying I think this is who I'm leaning towards, but it's changed for me before, like because of the way people express themselves or explain their game, or somebody else is explaining, well, I was the person behind this, and this.
Yeah.
You just didn't know, because it looked like.
So you're a pretty flexible juror.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
So what do you value? What do you look for in a winner?
I want someone that shows like that they made moves. They don't necessarily have to be like a challenge beast or anything, but showing that they talked with people, they were social, they built relationships, they made moves when they needed to make them. That's what I like to see. And I like to see people like own up, like, I did this and it flopped, or like own up to mistakes and own up to like their game, like what exactly they did.
So you're looking for honesty and agency, it sounds like.
Yes.
You've been on plenty of juries. Has what you've been looking for in a winner change or evolved over time, or do you think that's been kind of pretty set?
That's pretty standard. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you had to give a percentage, how often do you come into tribal council thinking person A and just flip to person B?
I would say between 40 and 50%.
Okay, so yeah, so pretty much you are always an open vote going into the final tribal.
Absolutely.
So if Kristen isn't at the end, you have Kristen, Rachel, and Taylor. I mean, what were your expectations? Like, who did you think of those 3, if Kristen goes out at 4, is going to be singing the end? And like, did you have pros or cons with their games at that point, or what you saw in there with their games?
Well, I thought like, okay, if Kristen goes out next, and I thought no matter what, Rachel would be at the end, because I felt like Keegan and Taylor would probably both take her. And then I wasn't sure who Rachel would take if Rachel won final immunity.
Why were you so sure that Keegan and Taylor were both going to try to sit next to Rachel at the end?
Because I felt like they knew her paranoia, and they knew that they made more moves, initiated more strategy than Rachel did. And so they would take her. But that's how I would, I mean,
I think one thing Taylor expresses, I think there's somewhat of a concern where she kind of says like, people might see my game and Keegan's as indistinguishable. And did you see differences in their games, or were you, if it was Keegan versus Taylor, were you going to end up leaning more towards one to another up front?
I mean, there were some differences in their games, but it was more in like, not really game, but more in personality and interactions.
Yeah.
So I think that one would be hard. That one would really, I wouldn't lean one way or another. It would all boil down to what they had to say.
Well, talk to me about Ponderosa. How was reuniting with the majority of the Ula Ula tribe?
It was fine. Like I said, Lindsey thought that I was crying because I voted for her, and that's not what happened. David was like, we should have done what I said we should have done, and I said I stand by. I'm like, yeah, we should have, but that's not what Kristen wanted to do. So you know. Aleem thought that a lot of the stuff I was doing was because I was ditzy. Like when I grabbed the idol and was like, "Oh my god, I have to pee!" He just thought I was a complete ditz and didn't realize I was doing things on purpose because I needed to get that idol in my that idol
Yeah.
in my bag, you know. So then he was like, "Okay, you're a lot smarter of a player than I thought you were." He's like,
Mm,
he just thought I was like riding coattails and not
mhm,
really having any clue as to what I was doing.
mhm.
And so I did some things that made me look ditzy, but there was a purpose.
All planned.
Yes.
Um, Looking back at the season, what were major decisions or choices you wish you had done differently that would have helped you in the game better?
Putting that vote on Lexi
Mhm.
and using the double, like my double vote on Rachel. Those are the two big ones.
So let's talk about it. So let's say you vote at Lexi. You vote
Mhm,
with the minority and vote at Lexi.
mhm,
Then at the final 9, you push for Liam, so Liam goes home. And at the final 8, when Keegan and Taylor are looking to flip, you join with them and say, no, let's trust them. Let's vote out Rachel. Now at
mhm.
the final 7. Um, are you still looking to sit the final, get to the final 3 with you, David, and Lindsey?
Probably.
Mm-hmm. So would that meant like you're targeting Tony at final 7, or who would have been the appropriate target, you think?
Probably Taylor or Keegan.
Really? So you just flip it right back onto them?
Probably.
So you lull them in, and then like no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which of the two would you voted out? So, would it have been Taylor because you had a better work relationship with Keegan because of experience on Baton 2.0, or
Well, it probably would have been Taylor, especially because Lindsey also had a really good relationship with Keegan.
yeah? I feel like that was one of the most interesting. I think probably one of the most important alliances in this merge was the Lindsey, Keegan relationship coming out of that tribe, because that really, I think, I feel like it had a lot of influence with how you and Lindsey were voting and pushing where to go, because you wanted to preserve that alliance.
Mhm. Yeah.
So Taylor at 7, and then you can kind of just pick your choice between Kristen, Keegan, and Tony into the final 3.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Um, is there anything else about anything else about your experiences with RBC you want to bring up that maybe we didn't talk about?
Why does math have to be part of a challenge?
You mean you don't love doing quadratic equations in your spare time?
I'm like, God, I haven't done this shit since high school, and it was
I
a long time
I
ago.
just love the scene of Taylor singing "I Hate Math and Spelling." You're just like, because it was funny because like the most apt person for that challenge is Kristen. She's hobbled. She can't even like get to the station time, and she was furious about it.
Yep. She's like, I knew what the answer was. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting variation. It's kind of like the Go Tell a Story challenge, except now
Mhm.
with math.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I petitioned for future seasons to have intro accounting basics on it, but that got nixed, and I was really sad.
Well, then they had the one season where they had like the periodic table of like and
Yeah, the
you had to
elements
go find the
lesson.
element sign. It's
You
been a
don't know
while
what
since we've done
potassium's
that.
element is, or lead, or it's just like I was like, oh wow, like it has been a good time since I've seen a periodic table of elements and never studied it.
Right? Like even as like when I was watching that episode, when Gyra would call them out, I'd be like, oh, do I remember what that is?
I mean, here in Survivor BC, we are all for well-rounded individuals. We want our winners to be experts in math and chemistry and language arts.
Oh, and theater with our dancing in the beginning.
I mean, again, my favorite part is just every episode starts with David just like eating it, and they're like, "I still got it."
Oh, but no, it was a fun game. I did enjoy it. Like I said, I don't know what was happening. The thin air was doing something to my brain.
I mean, so you've played how many other games at this point?
I have played 19 games.
So you've played 19 games.
Mhm.
When you think about Star RPC, what stands out to you? What do you remember? Like what flavor does that game inspire?
Well, I would say like the scenery there. I spent a lot of time just like looking at the woods because it's so different from where I live, and I've
Mhm.
never been like up that far north in that area before. So
Mhm.
I know I really enjoyed the setting. Um, yeah, I spent a lot of time just spacing out, staring at trees because I was so fascinated with how large they were, and
Mhm.
just it felt like I'm gonna really date myself. It felt like like being in the movie E.T. when they're in the woods there,
Yeah.
you know. So I really liked that aspect, and I don't. It was a fun game. Um, I really enjoyed some of the challenges. That marble challenge, that
Mhm.
was probably my favorite of the season.
The very first.
Yeah, where we had the
Mhm.
maneuver them with someone had to balance it. Although
Yeah.
like the end
Balance
thing,
and move through pipes and toss it, then solve a really difficult puzzle like ball maze.
yeah. See, the ball maze, that may have been a little much, but I liked all the other parts.
Well, at least we didn't get the 2x2 Rubik's Cube our season.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, do you still feel like you're most well known for your real foot appearance?
Well, I mean, out of like things that people are able to watch on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
there's only like a handful, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's the one most people watch.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
Um,
yeah.
do you think what game like is what game are you the most proud of? Is it that real foot? Is it real foot, or is it a different game? You're like, man, I wish that was the one that was taped so people could see me at like my peak.
Okay, my second game,
Mm-hmm.
because of how different I played from my first. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very proud of my gameplay in that one. And that was Survivor Ohio Severed Ties. There's only like 2 episodes and that's
Mm-hmm.
it. He
Mm-hmm.
just stopped editing. So, yeah. And that was in 2015, so I doubt he's going to be like, "I'm going to go back and edit this."
You're not gonna like you don't want to request the footage and edit yourself so the world can see.
I don't know how to do all that. So that
That
would
would be a
be
fun.
yeah.
I mean, you mentioned before the show started. You're gonna be taking some time off soon. I mean, learn new things. Like it could be fun.
Yeah.
And then
Um
everyone will be clamoring to have you edit their episodes too.
I don't know about all that. But that game, and then there was a game called Darwin that
Mhm.
was like a survivor type game.
Travis Rindler hosted that, right?
Correct. Yeah. I feel like I did really well playing that game.
Hmm.
Um, very working both sides, feeding information, you know, and that one, all the footage got lost. Yeah.
Um, walking out of BC, like you always talk about how you kind of retool yourself for the next game or experience. Like,
Mhm.
what were you thinking about? I think I need to do this a little differently, or just like man, things happen out of my control, and I did the best I could.
Listen to my gut more. I found in this game when there was something that I definitely wanted to do, I was allowing myself to be swayed off of that path, and
Mm-hmm.
when and those are the instances where if I would have done what I had intended to do,
Mm-hmm.
it would have worked out better.
Mm-hmm.
So, got to listen to myself a little more.
I mean, your merge play has been fascinating because I think you really dictated and really helped define the start of the merge. And had you like made those choices maybe differently, I still think like you have. I feel like you would have had a very commanding presence through the end game as well.
Well, thanks. I don't see that when I watch it, but
Well, it's with survivors. Sometimes it's just the small choices kill us, right?
yeah.
Like, I mean, my biggest dilemma is like, do I vote for Keegan or do I try to go for Rocks and pray Divs and play as idol? had I like voted for Keegan, like maybe now my shot of surviving the merge is 50-50 instead of like 1 out of 10.
Yep.
So, and so like it's just sometimes just those decisions. And you're just like, what do I do? Then you're like, I've decided poorly. It's like,
yes,
like, oh,
exactly.
shoot.
But you know, like there's all these other people and there's all these other elements, and you don't know what they're actually gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you don't know if they're actually telling you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's all kind of navigating all of the elements and figuring it out yourself, like what you're going to do. And so that I learned I need to listen more to what I want to do and not change along the way.
Do you feel your experiences through the Survivor and other live rally games, something if it's giving you just more confidence in yourself, or like have you seen any growth in like that?
Oh, I would definitely say I have more confidence in myself. 100%. You know, whatever. Like, well, I mean, I had confidence before, but not nearly the level that I feel like I've got now. So
I sometimes wish I had a time machine to go back to my first game, because I'm like, I would do that a lot differently, wouldn't I? I would be a much. I mean, I probably maybe would have been voted out instead, but like, I think I would do things very differently, or very least my mental state would have been very different.
Yeah,
having been put through the ringer through my PhD, where I'm like, I think I'm a more mature individual who can like handle things like that now.
Yeah. Well, see, I also got started late in the game, you know, because I'm almost 45 and I've been playing since 2014. So, I mean, I was older in almost every game that I've played. So, I don't know.
I think one of the most amazing things right now is like I feel like there's continuing to be more and new games popping up.
Yes.
Like I think we're trending upwards. Like, because when you're talking like I did this in 2014, I don't think that was like even pre-Survivor Maryland. I think Survival Challenge was just getting started and kind of starting to make waves. And like, so you kind of were on the forefront, and like there's just so much more options out there now. It's amazing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's tough.
Because I think the only criticism I could possibly have about our community is it's a little insular. It's like some of the games are a little incestuous.
Yes.
I mean, I didn't know for our first game together how much of a presence Reelfoot had in it. I had no idea, because I'd only seen like season 1, season 2. So I recognized you and I recognized Jalen. I'm like, oh my gosh, Stacy's here. To me, you were like a celebrity. I'm like, I've seen you on YouTube.
Yeah. That used to happen early on with games, and now people, it's just Stacy.
I mean, it's why I was so excited Chris Lohr was there. I'm like, I've seen him in Survival Challenge. Oh my gosh, he was like the last holdout against the Survivor Dr. Jill alliance. Like, what? I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
My dream is that we see these games pop up in more countries, and it gives me an excuse to travel.
Right.
Like, come on, British people, get it together. Host your own live rally game. I'm like, COVID's done awful things, and because I really want it to go away so the South African Survivor community can start hosting their live reality games. I want to go to Australia.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Oh yeah, I'd totally sign up for games in other countries.
I mean, because I know there's like one or 2 day games in Australia. I'm like, man, like I should just go to Australia anyways and play Survivor and just go like explore or something crazy like that.
Right. Go for 2 weeks, play for 2 days, spend the rest of the time
recuperating and making friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to wrap up with just kind of some rapid questions your way. And some of these I think we've already kind of answered, but maybe the answer will be a little different. So, what's your favorite thing about Canada?
Just the scenery again. Like I loved the different trees and
Do you prefer balut or biltong?
Biltong.
Had you eaten balut before?
No. No, that was a first.
I mean, would you ever eat it again?
I mean, if I had to, I would do it. Like,
would it be easier?
I think it would be easier because I know going into it what it. Yeah.
It tastes like hard-boiled egg.
Yeah, I got really into my head on that one.
It's just like, man, that rubbery part at the very end is just hard to eat.
Yeah.
But yeah, that moment where you gag at the very end, I'm like, no, I can't. I don't need to hear the Stacey. Don't do this to me.
I know. Sorry.
Who surprised you the most out there?
I would say Kristen actually did.
How so?
Because she was vocal about what she wanted to do and how she wanted to play. And I kind of thought, like, my initial impression of her was that she was just kind of going to float around to wherever she would be okay, you know, but she was willing to try and make some moves. And yeah, so I was surprised.
Who do you wish you'd worked with or had an opportunity to work with? And why is it Noah? No.
Well, I feel like I pretty much worked with everybody, right? Except for the first two people that were voted out from Batuhan.
Kevin and Naya.
Yeah, I think those were the only two people that I didn't have any interaction with.
Well, let me rechange the question. Who do you wish you had a tighter alliance with? Or could have had knowing now, like, man, it would have been fun to ride or die with this person.
Well, I would have liked to have been able to play with Lori. And I think it would have been interesting to play with Taylor, and then to maybe have started out with Rachel to see what it would be like to actually play with her, because I felt like I didn't get that opportunity.
What was I maybe this I already get an answer, but your lowest moment in the game? What was that?
Oh, easily when we came back from the tribal where Lindsey left. Yeah.
So what was your highest moment? What was like you felt like in the top of your game?
Highest moment.
You have adorable cats, by the way.
Oh yeah, thanks. He was like, "Mom, get in my lap." And now
sometimes their heads are poking up onto the camera. It's fun.
Yeah. He's Big Tom.
Hi, Big Tom.
I think when the extra vote was in my merge buff. That was a very exciting moment. You know, I'm like, suddenly I need to go to the bathroom.
So when I'm hearing future players who play with Stacey, if she goes to the bathroom, something's up. Don't trust her when she's going to the bathroom.
But I do pee a lot normally, so it wasn't like it was out of the ordinary for me to have to go.
It's all a facade.
That's the point, though. Like, it wasn't out of the ordinary for me to be like, oh my gosh, I have to go. I pee myself during challenges in a lot of games too.
I remember our challenge where we throw people above hay bales and solve the worst word puzzle ever because none of us could figure it out. Shiver me timbers. I don't remember. Something like very pirate. Batten down the hatches. Yeah. I was just like, this is not in my everyday parlance.
Yeah.
What was your favorite challenge? I think you already talked a little about this.
Yeah, it was the one with the marbles.
Second place favorite challenge.
I really liked the steal the bacon, but only when I was against someone who could not run and get there faster than I could get there.
Who were you up against in that?
Taylor. And that was the one where she almost had me to the end, and I managed to get up and manhandle it all the way back.
That was impressive.
Yeah, thank you. And then I was against Keegan, who was able to sprint out and grab it before I could even get to it. So. Yeah.
Were there any memorable moments at camp that you wish made it to camera or that you remember fondly?
I don't remember.
Fair. What's your biggest takeaway from this season?
For myself, to listen to my gut. Yeah. Pay more attention to what I'm thinking and feeling and follow it instead of following other people.
Now, considering you have a fair amount of library game experience, these are maybe not Sour BC questions, but do you let's say for your next Survivor game, do you want it to be a 3-tribe or 2-tribe game? You're in your perfect world.
2.
Okay. Swap or no swap?
I hate swaps. I really do.
But you did so well this one.
I don't think I've ever been swap screwed, but I don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have to really think, have I been? But I think I've always ended up okay, but then I'm always like, I'm not a fan.
Do you want a season with hidden immunity idols or no hidden immunity idols?
Hidden immunity idols, 1 per camp, one at merge. They don't reappear after they're played.
Do you prefer a final 2 or final 3?
3.
How come?
Because I feel like the people who made it to the 3 have to work harder to prove their game at the end, because it's not just against one person, it's against 2. So they have to work harder for their winning votes.
What's been your favorite twist you've ever encountered in a live reality game?
Oh, my favorite twist. I hate coins.
And why is it coins the purchase immunity during tribal council? Why is that your favorite?
Yeah.
Why are we mentally scarred from coins, Stacy? Why is that the case?
Right.
Because they single-handedly demolished our entire alliance that one game.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a fan of any. I've played a few games that had currency, and I'm not a big fan of like currency involved. Trying to think of a big twist.
It could be small. It doesn't need to be like game altering.
Because most of the games that I played, like the twist is the coins, and I hate the coins. I hear there's currency. I'm like, damn it.
I mean, this is I like the tribute. Half the reason why I freaked out to RBC was just like, oh my gosh, coins.
I know. Well, remember at one point I said to you, it's not the same. Settle down.
Hey, the coins were able to purchase stuff later on that were advantages and challenges. Like I knew they were going to rear their head like that.
Still, but I mean, you were so like neurotic about it early on.
No, it was bad. I
was trying to assist you.
I know. I did. Trust me, I did myself no favors in RBC. None at all.
Oh. Yeah, I don't really know of I don't think I have a favorite twist thing.
Or probably a favorite advantage is, have you seen something like, oh, I like that, or do you enjoy extra votes in games?
I don't mind extra votes. I don't mind, idols. I don't think I've seen any advantages in games that I've played that I've been like, this advantage is horrible.
Well, are you excited for your next game to have the knowledge is power advantage? No, I'm kidding.
No, I don't like that.
People man, CVS has come up with some really bad advantages.
Yeah.
I still think the flip coin is my least favorite one. I was just like, really? That's what your department came up with, is flip a coin and pray?
Yeah. Yeah. Not a fan of that.
I mean, at this point, what is on your Survivor bucket list?
Meaning?
I mean, what do you want to accomplish in games you've got to do? Because, are there specific things? I think some people I want to play an idol successfully, or I want to do a 3-2-1 vote split, or just win the game. I mean, what are the big things for you?
I mean, I guess at this point I'd like to win one. Because I have played an idol successfully.
Yeah, I mean, real foot. You did the fake idol, you did the real idol.
Yeah, I still have both of those.
And maybe the answer is you want to just get every idol in the game, the game in your possession at once.
Well, that would be nice, but probably difficult if they do one at each camp.
Well, you have to get your original tribe and swap over and get that one, then get the merge and steal the third. Then you just have all the trinkets.
Yeah, I could be, as they say, survivor rich.
Yeah, Chanel, Dre has a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm curious. I feel like that 3-way amulet thing they
Mm-hmm.
have, I don't know how you think that plays. And I know we're totally going off topic, and I
This is
apologize.
fine. This is our time.
But I think, because, it says at 3, it's worth an extra vote or whatever. And
Yeah,
at
2, it's a
2,
steal vote, 1's an idle.
yeah. So if all 3 of them are in the game and one decides to play it, does it negate the other 2, or do the
It's
other 2
nothing.
now have
They all
more
have to be used
power?
at once.
Oh, they have to be used at
Yeah.
once. Okay, I
So
missed
if Drea
that.
tries to use it and the other 2 say no, then it's no good.
Oh, see, I missed that part.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise I was like, because that would be pretty, be like, okay, I'm just going to use it for the double vote tonight. And
Mm-hmm.
then you guys can use the steal a vote and the immunity later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how
Yeah, and maybe it would have been better if hey, this is essentially an extra vote, but if you use 2 together, it's this. You use 3 together, this. I thought my impression was they all had to be used simultaneously to achieve that advantage.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Now I'm going to have to look up and see what the wording is.
All right, hold on. Survivor Wiki, don't fail us now. Advantage Survivor Wiki. Oh, shoot, I hit the wrong page. Advantage. Yeah, if all 3 are used, the holders collectively cast 1 extra vote. If 2 are left and used together, it gives them a steal vote. If 1 is left, it's used as an idle.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because honestly, of the nonsense Survivor has tried, this is one of the ones I'm actually kind of for. I think this is interesting. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is it's a very perverse incentive. It basically says, "Hey, target these 2 people." It's this isn't a bring alliance together. This is a destroy other alliances type of advantage.
Yeah.
And so that makes me wonder if it would be better reverse. 3 is an idle, 2 is a steal vote, 1 is an extra vote. They kind of incentivize you to have a cross team alliance. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or like you said, go ahead.
Well, and that's why I was thinking okay, I thought it was in the game.
Mm-hmm.
If 3 are in the game, it's worth this. If 2 are in the game, it's worth this. If 1 isn't, so they could actually use them and it wouldn't be in the game anymore. Yeah. And then 2 would still be left. So that's the way I interpreted it.
So how about this? So they put all 3 in. If 3 are used together, it's an extra vote. If 2, steal vote, 1 extra vote, but you can use them individually. And if you're voted out with it, you can will 1 to the remaining 2 players.
Oh.
Right. Yeah. So that way you keep them in the game, so you have the potential for them to be used for something. So at least a player might end up. So because I think the concern they have, which is why they go from 1's an idle to 3's an extra vote, is they're like, well, what if someone gets eliminated pre-merged with this thing, right? And then it's never going to be the flashy idle play we want.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
I like these kind of shared or secret advantages, and I think that's kind of a fun place that I think games can press into. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking do you watch Australian Survivor?
No.
So they had, it was a little weird, but essentially immunity idols at the tribe that only worked on the other tribe. And so you end up having this really interesting idol swap, but someone swapped a fake idol. And the guy who got the fake idol never checked for 5 episodes and then he realized that he got duped. So it was kind of amazing how long the con actually lasted.
Wow. Okay. I don't like the weirdo phrase to activate.
I have skin. Potatoes have skin. I am potato. Yeah, that's good. It's amusing, but and thankfully it's only going to be these 2 seasons because they're well, now people know what to expect. So we're going to do something different. Yeah. I think the biggest thing that's rankled me is that they've kind of tried to just carbon copy season 41 and season 42 together.
Yes.
I mean, I don't mind some things like the go to take a journey mechanic. I'm okay, sure. And and so some things haven't bothered me, but just the fact it's felt so similar is oh, come on. Is this, yeah. I'm wondering if it's pandemic related that they just felt really we don't have time, and so we're just gonna kind of do this thing and then tweak it. So are you sure you don't want to go starve on an island for 2 days alone? Are you really sure you don't want to starve on an island 2 days alone? There's great power there. And it's no, we wanted Applebee's.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at least that one, they gave them the option,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and really reiterated that it's great power over there, you know.
I still love the biggest change first. It's Applebee's. Like, sure.
Yeah.
Stacey, like from your experience with Live Reality Games, what do you want to see CBS Survivor incorporate more of, and what do you want to see Live Reality Games incorporate more of?
You know what I would love to see?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be hysterical. I would love to see a game with 0 hidden immunity idols.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody knows it. So we
Mm-hmm.
just watch people paranoid, hunting, and nobody knows there's no hidden immunity idols. I think that would be hysterical. And I'd
Now,
love to see that.
would you yourself want to be in a game where there's no idols?
I would love that.
Because I think you are a pretty deft social player, so I think you'd be like, this makes it even easier.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind not having idols, but I really think it would be funny for CBS to do a season with no idols. And
I've heard a lot of mutterings online about like a back to the basics season.
yeah,
I think CBS is very enamored with the big, like the gotcha moments.
Yeah,
Which is which is why they're like the hourglass is such a big gotcha. You're like, yeah, but this is not great.
yeah, right.
Uh-huh. And so you would you like to see Live Reality Games themselves try to do a much more, I don't want to say vanilla, but much more toned down season that just allowed people to play the game and focus on the gameplay?
Yes, I would love to see that.
Yeah. So less coins.
No coins.
I still personally think that there is a way to make fire tokens good and interesting and not broken. I think there is a balance somewhere. But
okay. I played quite a few that have currency.
Yeah, but I for one also agree, like I'm okay not playing in a currency game for a while.
Yeah.
Stacey, this has been an amazing chat with you. Is there anything else you want to talk about Survivor BC, about anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah. I just loved hearing kind of your just thoughts about games as a whole, about hearing about your mobile experience and talking through your BC game. And I'm excited to see how things, we know how things concluded. I'm curious to see how the episodes show it, because it's been very eye-opening to me as someone who watched the merge from the outside, kind of now getting that inside scoop on what actually went down our season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, for listening to Stacey and I maybe even ramble a little bit at the end, but it's been fun. I think next up is going to be the finale for Survivor BC. I think the editor is debating whether this be a 1 or 2 part episode, so we'll have to see what will come. But we're at the final 4. One of those will walk out the winner and walk out with some sort of cash prize I can't remember the actual amount of, and have their name carved in a tree in British Columbia. So get excited. Thank you all.
Thank you.